Today we're going to be taking a look at the Panasonic Z95B. This is Panasonic's flagship OLED TV for 2025, and it's going to be very similar to LG's G5 OLED. The reason why it's similar to that TV is because it's using the same exact panel as that TV, the Primary RGB Tandem OLED. Despite its similarities though, there are some differences that really stick out that make this a little bit different from the G5, and maybe there's reasons why you want to get the G5 over this, but there's also going to be some reasons why you're going to want the Z95B over the G5. So we'll talk about those differences in this video. Let's start by talking about the specifications of this TV. It does have 4 HDMI ports, but only 2 of those ports are going to be HDMI 2.1. And you'll also want to know that one of those ports is shared with the eARC port. And the maximum refresh rate of those ports is going to be 144 Hz, which is already a difference from the G5, where the G5 has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, all supporting 165 Hz VRR capability. So if you're a PC gamer, maybe you want to lean towards the LG G5. We'll have more on gaming a little bit later in the video. In the 55-inch and 65-inch size, the Panasonic Z95B has a unique design to it where it does swivel, so it has a swivel stand, which is pretty rare for a TV these days. It's worth noting though that the 77-inch version of this TV is not going to have that swivel stand. Instead, it has a pedestal stand where it's just going to stay in place. Now, on the TV itself, there is going to be speakers all around the TV, on the sides and on the top of the TV, and in the back there is a subwoofer built into the TV as well. So sound is a really big thing with this TV, and let me tell you, getting into sound right now, sound sounds so amazing on this TV. It's probably the best TV for sound that you can buy just out of the box, and you don't have to have a soundbar with this TV, though if you want to add one, you certainly can. And if you want to add your own subwoofer to this TV, that is an option, as well as it does have an ability to add a subwoofer to it. Now, one reason why you might want to add your own subwoofer is because the TV at high volumes, when you're really driving it, can have the subwoofer have a little bit of a rattle when you drive it past a certain point. Now, realistically, are you going to drive the TV this hard? I think it really probably depends on who you are, but for the most part, if you keep this TV at a reasonable volume, you probably will never run into this issue. But if you are somebody that's going to drive the TV to some maximum volumes, then well, maybe you want to add your own subwoofer onto this so you don't experience that rattle. Aside from that issue that may or may not affect you, I really think that this TV sound quality is just so incredible that I would highly recommend it if you're somebody that wants good built-in sound for your TV. Now I want to get into the OS and livability side of things. The TV itself is going to be an Amazon Fire TV, which means that it's going to be using the Fire TV OS. And this is going to be hit or miss for some people that really just don't like Fire TV. And I have to say, it's definitely going to feel a bit clunky if you're used to other TV OSs. On the main menu itself, it might feel a little bit slow. In the actual menus, when you're menu diving and going through settings, it's not too bad, and it actually does function quite well. The problem is just going to be that it is Fire TV OS. You either love it or you hate it, and that's just going to be what it is for some people. There is a way in options to get it to go right to the same input you just left off on, so if you're somebody that wants to use a dedicated streamer and make that your new smart TV system instead of the Fire TV, you absolutely have that ability. The remote itself is a Fire TV remote, so pretty much what you would expect if you bought a Fire TV device from Amazon. So it's going to be the same exact remote. It's not a very good remote, and the little chiclet buttons that are just kind of clicky, it feels very cheap, no doubt about it, for a premium TV. So that would be one of my knocks against the Panasonic Z95B, is that the remote and just the OS itself doesn't feel premium, but that's just a nitpick that I have with the OS itself. It is pretty functional, and you can get around the menus pretty fast, so it's not too bad in that department. Alright, now let's move on to picture quality. But first, if you guys want to help support the channel and keep these reviews sponsor free, please consider buying your next TV through one of our affiliate links in the description below. This helps us fund the channel and keep it going so we can get more future TV reviews out there just like this one. Thank you guys so much for your support. Now let's continue on with the rest of the video. Looking at picture quality, one thing is clear is that it had very similar characteristics to the G5 OLED TV from LG. Now, I do think this is going to be slightly better picture quality than the LG G5, and it was for a number of different reasons. I did feel like color brightness was slightly better on the Panasonic Z95B, getting closer to QD-OLED than the G5 was able to do at higher brightness levels. I'm not exactly sure why this is, but I do think it has something to do with the way that the TV is doing its tone mapping, which by the way has awesome dynamic tone mapping built into the TV itself. One of the best ways to watch this TV in HDR, in my opinion, is to use the dynamic tone mapping mode. Now, don't get that confused with the dynamic mode, which is more like a vivid mode. This is not that. When I say dynamic mode, I mean the actual tone mapping mode that the TV is in. If you're watching and you put it on filmmaker mode, by default, it will put the TV in this mode. And everything that I watched on this TV in HDR just looked absolutely incredible. And when I'm talking about dynamic tone mapping with this TV, it's not like the dynamic tone mapping you might be seeing from Samsung and LG when they're doing their dynamic tone mapping where it's over brightening the picture. No, this is a lot more similar to what Sony is doing, but Panasonic does their own thing with their algorithm, so it does work a little bit differently from what Sony does. But the results are very good, and when you're looking at this TV, it just looks like a masterpiece when you are watching movies. I absolutely love this TV when it comes down to movie watching. So not only was the Z95B having really good color brightness and good HDR tone mapping, but it had really good brightness in general. It was the brightest TV at times in the room, and it definitely showcased itself when it was next to all 4 TVs in a number of different scenes. It did really seem like it was the brightest TV in the larger sized windows too, and this is something that I saw with the Matrix White Room scene, for example. I thought this was a really good example of how bright the TV can get for an OLED TV. It was certainly impressive when it came down to these larger sized windows. So not only was the HDR incredible with its brightness, but the SDR certainly came to play with brightness as well. So if you need this for a bright room, this is absolutely a good bright room choice, no doubt about it. It can get the job done in SDR, and it will be one of the best SDR TVs you can buy right now. Now I want to talk about the processing a little bit, and the processing certainly surprised me when it came down to how good the TV would look. In a number of different scenes, I was surprised at how sharp it looked, yet it was still not going to be over sharpened. One thing's for certain, this TV is certainly not going to give you a soft look, but I do want to say it's not going to be as sharp as the G5, where that does seem to be over sharpened a little bit. I really don't get that sense from the Panasonic Z95B. I think people are going to be happy with the sharpness. It's not something that is over egregious, and I think overall that it's going to look very good to people. And to add on to that, when you get into the upscaling side of things, there are some tools to make upscaling a little bit better, but even in general, the upscaling just by default is really good on this TV. Older content gets upscaled really well, and lower resolution content does look good as well, so it's not a bad looking TV when it comes down to upscaling. Now finishing up on processing, let's talk about posterization a little bit. The posterization on this TV, I haven't seen too many examples of it in HDR10 to the degree that I've seen it on with like the G5, for example. I thought that this was a cleaner TV overall than the G5, except for in Dolby Vision mode. For whatever reason, Dolby Vision is riddled with different posterization issues across the board. So there is going to have to be some fixes being made in Dolby Vision, but that seems to be the case with Dolby Vision on a lot of TVs. There always seems to be some sort of issue with Dolby Vision. I really do think you should probably stick to HDR10 if you get the Panasonic Z95B, unless there is a significant patch that is going to fix this. Now I'm going to speak briefly on gaming because I have a full gaming review that you could take a look at of this TV if you need more information on gaming. Long story short though, this TV for gaming is an absolute treat. I think it has one of the best looking game modes out of the box in its true game mode, and you will really have a great picture quality with this TV in mind in regards to video games. It just does a great job, and the colors look fantastic out of the box. No tweaking really necessary at all when it comes down to the true game mode. There's also the traditional game mode. If you like that poppy exaggerated picture, you still have that going for you as well. And by default in that true game mode, it will be in HDR clipping mode, where this is going to abide by the HGIG guidelines. So if you're trying to set your game accordingly towards HGIG, you can absolutely do that with this TV. So that's really good. good for gaming as well. If you are a PC gamer, this does have up to 144Hz refresh rate support, so that's pretty good. Not quite the 165 that the G5 has, but it is really good still for a TV at 144Hz. Alright, now that's gaming, and we're going to get into comparisons and competition in a little bit, but first I do want to say that this TV can be used as a little bit of a grading monitor. I do feel like it has the edge over other TVs in that department, so if you're looking for a client monitor or you're looking for a TV where you could hook it up to your PC and grade videos like that, or just do any type of HDR grading work in general, whether it's professional, semi-professional, or just for fun, you have that ability with the Panasonic Z95B in the clipping mode. It acts very similar to a reference monitor, much like the iPad Pro in the reference modes. I think this is a really cool feature, and I want to see it on more future TVs, not just the Panasonic Z95B. I'd love to see all brands do this type of thing. Alright, now I want to talk about the competition. One thing the Z95B has going against it seemingly is the price tag. It does seem to be a lot more expensive than other premium OLED TVs. Now, I have seen this match the price of, say, the Bravia 8 Mark II, but the Bravia 8 Mark II has been more aggressive with their sales as of late as well, so it's really hard to say. It does seem like this is the most expensive premium OLED most of the time. Now, whether or not this is something that is going to stay that way, I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to watch the sales in the future, but expect to pay a little pretty penny for this TV compared to, say, the G5, where the G5 is on sale quite often and usually a lot cheaper than this. So you're going to have to like the Z95B quite a bit better than the G5 to want to pull the trigger and spend more money on it. And now, in terms of the actual performance, the Z95B is up there with all the premium OLED TVs. It performs quite well. In my side-by-side comparison where I had 4 TVs, I thought the Z95B fared very well. I think it did the best out of the WOLED, so between the G5 and the Z95B, it did the best there, but I do think it falls behind the Bravia 8 Mark II and the S95F because it's not a QD-OLED panel, and I think that's sort of where Panasonic maybe chose the wrong horse to back here. I think if they had made a QD-OLED panel, this could have been the best TV of the year. With all the features and the sound quality that comes with the TV, it would just be such a good TV to recommend. I could still recommend the Z95B, but I do think the Bravia 8 Mark II is better than the Z95B, and I think the S95F is better as well. However, it is brighter than the Bravia 8 Mark II, but I do give the edge to the S95F when it comes down to gaming. Not only for PC gaming at 165Hz, but you just have so many features to go along with the Samsung in-game mode as well as great color thanks to the QD-OLED. So competition wise, I would say it's probably the third best TV out there, but if you're favoring accuracy, it may be one of the top TVs for you because out of the box it is really good, and this is something that if you do value that kind of thing, you will probably want to have the Z95B pretty high on your list. Now, if you're somebody that's more on the other side of the coin and you like a more exaggerated picture mode, and maybe you like your dynamic tone mapping in HDR to kind of over brighten the picture, if you're a fan of that more poppy presentation, then I would recommend going with the G5 over the Z95B in that case. I do think that the G5 in that department does a better job. When it comes down to like pushing the brightness for dynamic tone mapping on this TV, it doesn't seem to do as good of a job when you're talking about really pushing the brightness and over brightening things. Where it does excel is going to be when it is in that more accurate state, though. I do think that it's one of the best TVs when you are talking about it being in that category. All in all, it's really hard to find faults with the Z95B, and it's one of the reasons why I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's just an amazing TV, and it is one that if you value a total package with good sound quality and good picture quality, the Z95B is hard to beat. Well, let me know what you think of the Z95B. Is this the TV that you'll buy this year? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to keep watching reviews or comparisons, definitely check out this video right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.